must a Christian live a separated life? Now, it is a question of separation that I want us to consider this morning. Many people miss this fact that really is a fact of victory in our life, that is separation. And I would say this, a lot of times when we get to this point and we're going to preach a message of us being separate, the church tunes out. And I will tell you, the church needs to tune into this passage. And a lot of times, I'll grant you, this subject is dealt sometimes in the wrong manner. And it is looked at in the wrong way. And it is looked at through the lens of legalism and do's and don'ts. Well, I won't tell you, there's do's and don'ts. Amen? And the process of sanctification really is this. It is one of the Lord teaching us certain things and training us in a certain way, and us understanding this. You know what? There are things that God says for us to do, and things that He says that we ought not to do, and all that really is us being separate unto the Lord. Now, sometimes the issue is one of maturity. You know, Paul said all things are okay for me to do, but all things are not expedient. Just because I'm free and I've got liberty to do certain things does not mean that I ought to. Now, the individual says, well, I'm saved, I can do this or I can do that. I'm not going to argue with you, and that's not really the point of this passage here. It's no longer an issue of salvation, as we will see. You can be saved. Now the issue is one of obedience, and it becomes one of joy in your life right here, right now. Now, all of us have experienced this. Have you sinned? Since you've been saved. I'm talking to Christians this morning. Since you've been saved, have you sinned? Knowingly disobeyed the Lord. Been an area in your life that you fell, let's say it this way, you fell miserably. You feel joyous in that moment. You feel like a strong, victorious Christian in that moment. Absolutely not, dear friend. And that is somewhat of what these two verses are dealing with in this chapter. Well, throughout the Bible, though, God wants His people and tells His people to be a separate people. He spoke that truth to the Jews when He said this: when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughters shall not give them to thy sons, and his daughters shalt thou not take unto thy sons, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God, and thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto Him. Above all the people that are upon the face of the earth, the Lord did not set His love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people. For ye were the fewest of all people. But because the Lord loved you, and because He would keep the oath which He had sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Now, several verses there. I'm not going to deal with it, but I just want to read that to you to say this. God always intended for Israel to be a separate people. And He wanted His people to be different from those that had inhabited Canaan before them. They were to be His, and this is the way He put it, special people. Special not because of their might, not because of who they were particularly. Special because of the oath that God had made with their fathers. They were to be a special people. Now, I'm going to say this about Israel, then we'll move on. They never did become what God had intended for them to become. I better restate that a little bit. Will you let me do that? Up to this point, they have not become what God intends for them to become. There is a day coming when they will, but they still have not become that. Now, we move to this day, and we're dealing with the church, and I want to tell you, God has called His church to be a separate people. Christians are to be separated unto the Lord. Paul said to the church at Corinth, "Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God. As God hath said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and ye shall be my sons and daughters, saith the Lord Almighty." It is pretty plain, is it not, as Paul speaks to the church, that what God is saying, be separate. Be different. Now, I do believe this flies in the face of a lot that we see going on in the church world of our day. When there is such a push in the church of our day to be like the world. Now, folks, this is what is being kind of, I'm going to say it this way, crammed down our throat today. You have to look like the world. You have to talk like the world. You have to be like the world if you are going to win the world. Well, I will tell you something. If you look like the world, you act like the world, you sound like the world, dear friend, what are you going to win them to? By the way, it's really not so much a thing of the world accepting us, is it? Is it not a thing of the world accepting Christ? And is God going to use His church? And how is it that God is going to use His church? I'm going to tell you the way that God uses His church, dear friend. He sets the church up in contrast to the world. And when the church is what the church ought to be, there is a sharp contrast. And through the ministry of that contrast, the church being what it ought to be, God uses the ministry of conviction. And some in the world will accept it, some will reject it. Now here's the problem that we are having today. We don't want to be different. Now, I'm talking about the church world. We don't want to be different because it is easier to be like everyone else. Now here, I used to say this when I was a young preacher. I don't care what you think. Most of the time that might be right. But I'm going to be honest with you and tell you. You know what? Sometimes I do care what you think. I care what other people think. And we kind of struggle with that. I don't know anybody that does not want to be liked by other people. And there may be some out there. But generally I would say this. We want to be accepted of our peers. We want to be accepted of folks that are around us. We want that. Now here's the problem. Nothing wrong if you've got the right folks around you that you want to be accepted by. But here's the problem with the church wanting to be accepted by the world. We sometimes forget that really God is calling us to be separate from the world. That doesn't mean we don't love those in the world. Folks, that does not mean that we don't visit our neighbors. That does not mean that we don't try to have an effect in the world, but it does mean this, that we have now made a commitment to Christ, and it is our intention to live differently for Him. So that is the subject of separation. I want you to notice a few things with me in this passage. First of all, we are given the reason to live a separated life. And I guess when it comes to being separate from the world, the very first question that we ought to answer is this: well, why wouldn't we? I know we would say it this way, maybe, well, God said do it, and that's enough, amen? But let's go a little deeper. Why wouldn't we? Because God does give us some reason for that. Verse number 12, he starts out this way, and he says, therefore, brethren. A few Sundays ago, I started preaching in this chapter. And in chapter 1, we dealt with that word pretty extensively. Remember, therefore? And I told you that word was there, that it dealt specifically with what had just been said in chapter number 7. But really, that word goes all the way back to chapter number 1 and deals with all of the argument. And I kind of put that in place, and we walked through those steps. Well, I'm glad to tell you that this, therefore, don't go all the way that far back. All right? So we're not going to preach all that. But it does deal, this word does deal with what has been said in this chapter up to this point. Because of what has been said is the reason for me to live a separated life. Now, let me stop right there and say this to you. I'm never going to be able to make you live a separated life. You are never going to make me live a separated life. This is going to be a hard pill to swallow right here. You ready? Husbands, you're never going to be able to make your wife live a separated life. Wives, you are not going to be able to make your husband live a separated life. Now, you might browbeat them into coming to church. You might harp on them to the point that they'll do certain things that you want them to do. But just because you get somebody to do something like that does not mean they're living a separated life. And if they're doing it for you, they're not separated unto the Lord. They're separated unto you. One step farther. You're not going to be, Mom and Dad, you're not going to be able to make your kids live a separated life. When they're at home, when they're under the scope of your protection and your authority, absolutely. Absolutely. No question. There's no question where our boys were going on Sunday morning. No question. Now, when they get out of your house, they're doing their own thing. You're not going to make them live a separated life. So what are the reasons for a separated life? I'm going to tell you, the reasons are pretty good. What he has said thus far, there's 7 things. I'm not going to deal with all of them. I just want to give you these 7 reasons that he has given up to this point. All right? Number 1, the Spirit of God now has joined us to Christ. Verse number 1 says, we are no longer condemned. We are no longer what we used to be. We are now in Christ Jesus through the Spirit of God. We have been joined to Christ. I always thought it interesting when I was a boy, when we'd go and visit someone, Mom and Daddy would always say, we're going to so-and-so's house. And it'd always be, we're going to Sue and John's house. It never would be, we're going to John's. It never would be, we're going to Sue's. It would always be, we're going to their house. It's only after I became an adult and I got married that I realized now, you know what, it's no longer Eric. It is Eric and Kathy. been joined together. I want to tell you, that joining of Eric and Kathy, it's pretty substantial. Number one, it's legal. It's binding. I always tell folks when I marry them, just the day before we're going through that rehearsal, I go to them and say, now, your opportunities are running out. You're going to get out of this. This is your opportunity. And, you know, sometimes you just want to say to a fellow, run. Or to a lady, run. And the day of, I'll you know, just kind of go around and visit with them. I'll tell them how handsome he looks, how pretty she looks. I'll say, now, you know, we're down to the hours now, down to the minutes. If you're going to get out of this, you better get out. Because once we go through this, I'm going to take two people, and we're going to sign these documents. And I'm going to sign this document. I'm going to put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it. And when I drop that thing in the mail, guess what? The state of North Carolina then at that moment says, that's a done deal. No. Legal. So we're bound legally. I want to tell you though, we're bound spiritually. Because I stood that day and I made an oath to make her my wife. She made an oath to be my wife and take me as her husband. And there was a bond there. That's exactly what Paul is talking about has happened to us as Christians. We now have been yoked together with Christ by the Spirit of God. He has joined us to Jesus. Number two, we've been delivered from the wrath of God. No more condemnation. That word condemnation means the sentence passed and the sentence carried out. There is no longer any condemnation. I want to tell you something, friend. If this don't make you want to live for Jesus, I don't know what will. The fact that you don't have to go to hell. Amen. I mean, hey, if God never gave another blessing, if He never done any, showed us another act of kindness from here to glory, dear friend, this would be enough to live for Jesus, understanding this. I don't have to go to hell because of what you did for me. Amen. Then, the third thing, we've now been brought under the rule of Christ. I know that don't sound too exciting, but I want to tell you, that's actually pretty exciting. When you consider this. Now, somebody will say, well, I'm not under anybody's rule. Oh, yes, you are. Everybody in this place, everybody that you'll ever meet is under somebody's rule and authority. Now, these fellas run around and they'll say, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I always smile when I hear somebody say, well, nobody's going to tell me what to do. You just ain't met the right person. And if they're married, I always just kind of snicker to myself and I say, yeah, buddy, you might say nobody's telling you what to do, but I know what's going on over there at that house. I know what happens when she says, somebody needs to take the trash out. I know what you're not saying. You're not saying, well, you big enough to do it yourself. You taking the hint. You're under somebody. We're all under somebody's rule. Never think that you're not. We are. We now have passed from the rule of the world and the flesh, and we have come under the rule of Christ. Jesus put it this way when He says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke, that is His rule. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. I want to tell you something. I do not understand what some Christians testify to. Are you listening now? I don't understand this testimony. Oh, being a Christian is so hard. There are times, I will tell you, there are times that it's hard on me. You know what those times are? When I'm being disobedient. When I'm doing something I ought not to do, boy, it is hard. But can I tell you something? When I'm walking in obedience to the Spirit of God, and my life is what the Lord wants for it to be, can I tell you, that's a joyous life, dear friend. And what I have found is this: His yoke really is easy. Well, I mean, I used to think about all those things God says don't do. Boy, when I was young, I mean, boy, I didn't understand that. You remember Mom and Daddy telling me, now don't you do this. You ought not to do this. And you'd think to yourself, oh, Mom and Daddy don't know anything. My mama used to say this. And those of you know Mom, you know, you can kind of hear her saying this. She used to say, my kids used to look at me like I had stupid stamped on my forehead. Well, I'm going to tell you, as a young boy, some of the things they were saying sounded stupid to me. But the older I got, the more I realized, boy, Mom and Dad really knew what they were talking about on this issue. And boy, I got to think, and the older I got to thinking about that. You know what? It's not as hard to follow some of those rules as I thought it was. And I'm going to tell you the do's and don'ts of this Bible, for the individual separated unto Christ, they're really not that hard. Amen. Because now we are under His rule. You know what that simply means? I won't make it as simple as I can. You know what it means? It means now that we delight just to do it His way. To live His way. To call it His way, dear friend. We delight in that. And then the fourth thing is this. He's given us a new nature. He says in these verses here that we now have been quickened. Now that means that we have a new nature. Now, there's something else going on in us. But sometimes, look, don't ever think this. Don't ever think this about me. Don't ever think that I'm some kind of super Christian. Well, you know, the preacher, he's not like everybody else. He don't struggle with issues. He don't struggle with temptations. He don't do that. I want to tell you something, friend. I put my britches on just like you do. I want you to know something. I have to deal with those issues just like you do. Now, your issues maybe are probably different than mine. But here's what I want to tell you. I'm glad I'm struggling with them. Do you know why I'm struggling with them? Because God put a new nature in me, dear friend, and that new nature wars against that old nature. Then the fifth thing I want you to see. We have been given the assurance of heaven. I said, if there wasn't any other reason than not going to hell, that'd be enough. But I'm glad there's more of a reason. Now we're going to heaven. Now, I don't know how you feel about it, but this is the way I feel about it, dear friend. I just believe what Jesus says is right. And I believe what He said is true, dear friend. I believe this, that when Jesus said, let not your heart be troubled, you believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you, behold, I go and prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, and where I am, there you may be also. When I was a boy, there was a song that the church used to sing. And that song went this way. Oh, I don't need a mansion in heaven. Just a cabin over in the corner of glory, that'll do. And I can remember singing that song, and man, the old timers, they just get to shout and they get to praise. And I thought, man, that's just great. And then I got to read the Bible. You know what I found? There ain't no cabins mentioned. And I got to read it said mansion. Then I got to read, there's some liberal theologians, they don't believe there's any mansions there. They talk about this, they talk about that. And what do we need a mansion for? I don't know, but this is what I do know, dear friend. God said there's going to be a mansion there. And there's going to be. There's going to be. This is what, and whatever it is, this is what I know. Jesus has gone to prepare a place for us. Y'all remember we used to go on vacation back before we had computers. back before we had internets, back before we had GPSs, and but the only way you could see, kind of know where you was going to end up was if you saw a picture of it in a magazine or something. You remember how we used to sit down and plan for vacations? We get the maps out. We'd map it out, and they wasn't no GPS telling you turn here, turn there. Well, you had to write down what road you was going to take, figure out what exit it was, and things. And we were a little bit smarter back then than what we are right now. Had to be. Men, we could get by with it a little better. If we took a wrong turn, we realized that we also do this. If I go about 10 miles down here and take a right, she will know when to do it. Amen? But you know what part of the excitement, now we got computers and we can pull up everything. There's 2,000 pictures of where we're going, and we know what it looks like before we get there. You know what part of the excitement used to be about going to those places? What it was going to be like when we got there, and being surprised by what we did not know. Can I tell you, there's more about heaven that we don't know than there is that we do know, dear friend. Do you know part of the excitement about heaven is this? Being surprised at what Jesus has made for us. Then, we also have been made members of God's family. Here, He saved us from hell. He's indwelt us. He's made a place for us in heaven, dear friend. But right here, right now, you know what He's also done? He's placed us within the family of God. That's what all that says. He says, therefore, who? Brethren. That is a name of kinship. That is a name of family. And I like it, dear friend. This is the way we talk with each other. From time to time we'll say this, brother, sister. Now, men, I can tell you this. My mama only birthed one male child. I do not have any earthly brothers. But I walk up to some of you and I say, oh, brother. And I want to tell you something. We're connected. Sometimes I'll tell you this. I'm connected more to the family of God than I am to my own family. People ask me, say, are you kin to this person? I have to stop and think whether or not I'm kin to them. And then they'll go on and I say, yeah, you know what? They're my second cousin. Yeah. But I'll tell you this. I'm closer to you than I am to them. God's given us a family right here. We take it for granted. Well, we don't all take it for granted. We come to each other and we'll say, would you pray about this? And, by the way, when somebody says, would you remember this in prayer, how many of you remember that? How many of you pray for it? Yeah, raise your hand. If you don't, you ought to start. I will tell you, it thrills my heart to be able to say to somebody, brother, sister, would you pray about this? Would you remember this? We've been made part of the family. Folks, those are just a few reasons right here of why we are to live a separated life. Now, not only do you see the reasons, but then we're given the responsibility to live separate lives as well. He goes on and he says this, therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. So here's the responsibility. He says we are in debt. I don't know about you, but I don't like being in debt. Sometimes you can't help that, and you're going to be in debt. But I want to tell you this: I don't like feeling like I'm in debt to someone else. How many of you are guilty of this? You'd rather fail doing it yourself than feel like you're bothering somebody to get them to come help you do it. Can't stand to ask somebody else for help. I'm going to tell you, one of my favorite lines as a pastor is this. I like to say this to folks. Y'all need anything? If you need anything, let me know. Now, I'm going to tell you, 31 years, I've learned something. It don't take me but about 2 times to figure out who not to say that to. Amen? But that's the way we are. And part of that is, I like it. I was raised that way. If you can do it yourself, guess what you're supposed to do? Amen. Sometimes we need help. Well, this is what he says. We are now in debt. If you are saved, listen to me. If you are saved, you have a debt that you are to spend the rest of this earthly life trying to pay off. You're in debt. You are in debt to this, not to live after the flesh. The Greek word there that is used is exactly what we understand it to be. It means one who owes somebody else. Someone with a debt is someone now who is under an obligation. There is no longer an issue here that you have a decision whether you can or should pay it off. We know this. You're in debt. You ought to pay it off. Now, it's the same word that is used earlier in Romans chapter number 1, verse 14, when Paul says, I am debtor both to the Greeks and the barbarians. And what he is saying is, look, I have a debt to other individuals to make sure that they know what I know. And they hear the gospel that I have heard. And so he says, I am a debtor. Now, God's saying to us as the people of God, we are in debt. Not to live after the flesh. Now, what he's saying is this. We are now indebted. We're obligated to God to live a holy, separated life. Now, individually, we got to say this. This is the area of our Christian life that we most fail at. We don't, look, some of us have been saved so long, we don't think about it anymore. We do not think that our lives right now are in debt. Now, you might say, well, who am I indebted to? I'm glad you asked. You are indebted to the work of Christ on the cross for you. I cannot save myself. You cannot save yourself. But because of what Jesus Christ has done for us, we are now indebted to Him. Not to live after the flesh. All of us want to live after the flesh. Some of you, oh my goodness, it's after 12 o'clock. In most Baptist churches, they'd be going wild right now. There'd be fellas sitting there doing this. Don't he know what time it is? And right about right now, especially now that I'm going to mention it, there is the desire of the flesh that's settling in. You're thinking about, what are we going to have for lunch? What are we going to eat here in a little while? And your body now is kind of bringing you under the bondage of that desire. We're all in that. But we are also living in this day when much of the church is saying it is okay to live after the flesh. I'm going to bring up a few topics here, and they're probably not going to be fun topics. They're not going to be easy topics for some folks. They're a little easier for me. Now, we're living in this day, dear friend, when folks are saying this. You know what? You can be a Christian, just drink all you want. Drink all the alcohol you want. There are other Christians that are saying this. No, you can only drink so much. Just, you do it. It's okay if you do it socially. And there's churches now that are having drinking socials. Hello? Now, some of you might be wrestling with this and say, well, what should we do or should we not do? Y'all do what your preacher says. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's not. Y'all do what the Word of God says. Now, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but Proverbs says this. It says, do not even look at the wine while it moves in the glass. That's talking about it's fermented. Now, if you're not to look at it, how are you going to drink it? Hello? Now, so, but you say, well, now look, does drinking it make people lost? No, it does not. And look, I've had this debate. Some Christians have decided to do that. Look, this is my judgment on this issue. All right? I'm preaching, I'm on you. My judgment on this issue. I think it's wrong. All right? Is that going to make them lost? No. It doesn't do a whole lot, in my opinion, to show they're saved, but it's not going to make them lost. I don't tell you, I don't think we have played that issue out. Now just think for a moment. Your pastor decides he's going to start drinking. All right? I'm just going to, I've adopted this idea. It's okay. All right? So you as an adult, you might be sitting there and you might say, well, I don't like that. No, that's not, I don't agree with that. Whatever. We're up here at the grocery store. I run into your family. Your little old young'un comes up to the front of my buggy and stands up on the front of it like they'll do, and looks down in my buggy. And he sees that. What do you think their opinion is going to be after that? Well, my preacher says it's okay. If it's okay for him, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. The sin of one generation is always multiplied in the next generation. It is not added, it's multiplied. That is a Bible fact that you can go and you can look at the sin from generation to generation. Well, it might be okay. The question then becomes, though, this: is it expedient? Separation says this: I'm going to separate my life to God in these issues, and it's not a case I have to do it. It is now a case I want to do it. And this is why I want to do it. Jesus died for me. There's been a change. Now, when I was a young boy, we watched this movie through the years, I don't know how many times. It's a Disney movie. Some of you are going to remember it. The Black Stallion. Y'all remember that movie, The Black Stallion? Boy, I always wanted two things. As a boy, I wanted two things. Number one, I wanted a white horse because I loved the Lone Ranger. Y'all knew that, right? Boy, I saw that movie, and guess what else I wanted? I wanted a black horse. Boy, I wanted a black. I could see myself. Living here in the mountains of North Carolina, I could see myself riding that black stallion on the beach somewhere. Then I was about 14 years old, Christmas morning. And as a fellow pulled up in a truck with a trailer, he had another fellow with him. And they brought out of that trailer this black horse. It was an Arabian. And I'm going to tell you, when it come out, it was on its hind legs. It was as wild. It was as wild as it could be. For you adults, I'm going to tell you, we had a person come over there to that barn and put that animal to sleep, and they done some alteration on that horse that vastly changed his outlook on life. And after he was changed, you could do something with him. We broke that horse and trained that horse, and every day I rode that horse. And he'd do whatever you wanted to do. He'd go wherever. If I told him, pointed him in a certain direction, go there, he would go there. I could hop up on his back without a saddle, without reins, and just grab his mane and just take him wherever I wanted to go. I could shoot a gun off his back, under his belly, around his neck. If I could have figured out how to put my heels in like those Indians, I could have shot a bow off of him. Wasn't his problem, it's my problem. I taught that horse to get down on his knees so somebody could get on him. I would take the reins of on that horse, and I pull those reins up around its neck, and if I do that, that horse would follow me. It'd stay one step behind me, and wherever I go, that horse would go. If I would take those reins and drop them on the ground, he wouldn't take a step. Well, I used to take him and put his saddle on him and bring him down in the driveway and drop his reins and go in the house and drink coffee just to see what that horse would do. It wouldn't move a step. And I'm going to tell you, I was proud. You know why I was proud? Because that horse done what I wanted him to do. And you know what? I'm not big on these type of things. But if that animal could love someone, I think it would love me. You and I are to be obedient unto Jesus. And we are debtors to Him because of what He has done for us. You remember when you got saved? You was a pretty wild buck. Those of you who've been saved, you are not now what you used to be. You know what happened? God went to working on your life. And God would point out this issue in your life, you know what you'd say? Oh, I want my life to be what Jesus wants it to be. So Lord, have your way with this in my life. Then you know what He done? Moved on to another area. Here we are, some of us, 43 years. I've been saved 43 years this year. 43 years. I'm going to tell you something. My life ought to be more than what it was 43 years ago. And I want for it to be. For the same reason that I did back then, dear friend. I know this. I'm in debt to Him. Well, we are then given the requirements of these separated lives. He goes on and he says this. We are dead not to the flesh to live after the flesh. For if you live after the flesh, you shall die. But if you through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, you shall live. We are given the requirements of the flesh here. And they're simple. Just two real quick. We're not to live for ourselves. Number one. Most we're to live for Jesus. Number two, in living for Jesus, we are to live for others. This is what Jesus said. Prefer others before you. Be the servant of the least among you. Who is it that you consider lower than you? Least among you. Serve them. Serve them. In doing so, what we are doing is this. We are living out and showing that our lives have been separated unto Him. And then the final thing here. We are given the result of a separated life. And He says, if you live after the flesh, there's a sure result. You shall die. You're going to die. Now, the world boasts and they brag. People brag about how much they can drink, and all they can do, and how much they can get away with. I want you to hear me. Sooner or later, it's going to catch you. Sooner or later, it's going to catch you. You say, well, it's always amazing to me. The folks say, if you smoke, that's your business, all right? Well, I want to tell you something. It's always been amazing to me how we can have people in our families get lung cancer. We still won't smoke. And this is kind of the mentality in that. Might have got thin, but it's not going to bother me. How do you know that? How do we know that? Here's what I'm telling you. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up to us. If we we live to the flesh, he says this: you're going to die. You're going to die. Then the second thing is, if you die to the flesh, though, guess what? You're going to live. You're going to live. Now, I don't know so much there that he's talking about physical death. We know this. You do certain things, you increase your chances of dying. But I do know this: before we come to Christ spiritually, we are dead. After we come to Christ, we are now spiritually alive. Dear friend, there can be no victory in the Christian life if you live like you're spiritually dead. None whatsoever. Here we're given these results. When we walk down the road a little bit, you younger folks ought to listen to some of us older folks every now and then. Because we've been through what you're going through. We know the struggles that you're in, and we'd be honest with you and tell you, we know the struggles of the flesh. And we've learned some things now. One of the things we've learned is this: it is better to consistently live for Jesus Christ and get your life separated unto Him and die to yourself. Folks, Jesus simply said this: if any man will come after me, let him do this thing: deny himself, take up his cross, follow me. It's interesting, we kind of focus in on taking up the cross, following Jesus. But the first thing Jesus says is this: deny yourself. You can't really pick up your cross until you deny yourself. Deny yourself, pick up the cross, then follow. Well, what we've learned is this: there's victory in denying ourselves. The world doesn't see it. The world says, do what you want. Well, Josh, come on this morning. I don't want you to misunderstand the command of separation. God's not saying, all right, move into a monastery somewhere. Let's build us a commune. Get everybody gathered in. We're not going to have any interaction with the world. That's not what He's saying, folks. We are in this world, but we're no longer of this world. Any of you feel this way from time to time? You ever feel out of place in this world? You ever feel like you're the odd one out? I hope you do. I hope, dear friends, when you find yourself interacting in this world, do you feel like there's something different about you? You just don't belong. I don't know how you feel about it, but there's just sometimes I can't wait to get to church. It's not always so I can get here and preach. Sometimes I just think to myself, I can't wait to get to church and just be around like-minded folks. People who love Jesus. People that I've got something in common with. I don't know how it is for you, but I can walk into this place and just relax. Be with God's people and just be at home. Being separate from this world means we are no longer like this world. We're in love with Jesus. Because we're in love with Him, we want to live a holy life for Him. That's a struggle. Mortify the deeds of the flesh. Put to death the deeds of the flesh, the desires of the flesh. Separate our lives to the Lord. This is the last thing I want to tell you about. It is an individual battle. If you're trying to live for Jesus, you're fighting this battle in your life. I want my life to count for Him. Now, some of us around here turned 50 here not too long ago. 51. This is what I've come to the conclusion. I'm closer to death now than I am to birth. Probably don't have as many years before me now as I've got behind me. What I understand is this, though. Time is becoming more and more precious to me. It's more valuable to me than anything else that I possess. My time. I find myself wanting to make a better use of it. I want it to be spent a little more wisely. I look back to those years. Boy, I wish I could go back to 20 years old and tell that fellow, make a better use of your time. Whatever time I have left, this is what I want. I want my life to be used for Jesus. And I want it to be the best that it can be for Him. Folks, I don't want that so that I can get into heaven. I want it because I'm going to heaven. I don't want it so I can be saved. I want it because I am saved. I don't want it so much because Jesus demands it of me, though He does. But I don't want it so much for that as I do this. He deserves it. The one that died for me surely deserves me living for Him. That's all I want to tell you. That's the question of separation. God's judgment on the matter is this: be ye separate. We're going to stand this morning. Look, maybe you're here and you'd say, "Preacher, I'm not saved. I don't know the Lord. I need to be saved." We want you to come. Christian, though, maybe you're here and you'd say, "You know what, preacher? I want to do better at this issue. I want to be better on this. I want my life to be what the Lord really wants it to be. I want my life to be separate unto Him." You need to deal with that this morning while we stand and while we sing. Will you come?